Oh, I've made your favourite. Well, I hope it's still your favourite. I'll just go and pop the kettle on and then you can tell me everything.
Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul. And we are
SP Film Viewers.
time for another Patreon pick. And this time it's of the LGBTQ variety.
Okay. I know obviously it's Pride Month, so I'm aware of that. I don't really know what... That's quite still vague for me.
Wise.
With what you just said. I'm still none the wiser of what I'm going to be seeing. It's going to have like a same-sex, possibly, relationship or something like that. Which is fine. I'm not... That really don't bother me. I love watching Queer Eye for a straight guy kind of thing. I absolutely adore that.
But the reason I feel like we've never really approached that in any of the films we've watched, as in like that we've covered on the podcast. I mean, not that we've never ever seen any.
No, of course not. We have
stories that involve that.
Well, I always think of Perks of Being a Wallflower being
that is one
prime example.
Yep.
To be fair, that's like the one that really does, and even Skeleton Twins.
Yeah.
So, but that with you saying that it's celebrating obviously Pride Month, I still don't know what film genre it's going to be.
They're generally more dramas, aren't they? Because it's obviously dealing with coping with those feelings and stuff. There's not like a not that I've come across from my search of anything too deeply, but they all seem to be fit in that genre, not like action or maybe sci-fi.
There should be. Maybe they should get that as well. They'd be allowed to just do whatever they want. Coming into like where I feel like we should be getting to a point where everybody can be who they want to be.
I think that I don't know if there is actually like a subject to touch on if it was in like the horror genre, really, of a way to. I don't know if that's been tackled before. I can't think of anything. Not to say, like, it's horrific that...
You know, the only one I can think of...
But, you know, like, in terms of... What?
More like the slasher vibe with that Pete guy.
Pete Davidson. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Yeah. I'm sure they were a lesbian couple, weren't they?
Yeah, but I meant exclusively, like, a storyline completely focused around that, rather than someone who just happens to be...
In a relationship.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, like, the whole reason for the story is based on that, is what I mean, not... Yeah, because you could have, characters in any situation.
Yeah. Okay, tell me what we're watching, because I don't have a clue.
So we're going to be watching, out of the votes that we got the most of, a film called All of Us Strangers, which is on Disney+.
Okay.
And it's came out last year, according to this, 2023. So it's fairly recent.
And out of the ones that you put on the Patreon pick, was this something you... Well, obviously you picked both of them, so clearly you want to see them.
Yeah.
Did you have a preference of which one?
No, one I have on in like a box set on the shelf. This one was just because it was more like a more recent film. I think I did want to check that out anyway. I think I did almost contemplate putting this on a couple of weeks ago or something watching with you anyway, so kind of makes sense to cover it in that.
And I think there was a Christmas one as well as that we haven't covered yet that is on your list with Kirsten Stewart.
Yes, there is. It's just the means of getting hold of that one. But maybe easier access around the time. I don't know, I have to keep searching for that. But anyway, this is featuring one of the actors in this is Paul Mescal, who you might recognise from After Sun.
Okay.
And to the TV show we first saw him in Normal People.
I always get After Sun and Before Sunrise and Before Sunset.
Yeah, the one where he's on holiday and with his
little
daughter
and
quite heavy hitting.
Is he what accent's he got now? He's Scottish.
No, he's Irish.
Irish.
He's Irish, but he had a Scottish accent in that.
Right. Okay. No wonder.
He's Irish. Yeah.
No, I feel like you're already telling me that with the tone that he's been in of films. I think this is going to probably hit me hard.
And I don't know if you've seen anything with Andrew Scott in before. He's an Irish actor as well.
He looks familiar, but...
He was in Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch, Martin Freeman one. He was Moriarty.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you ever saw
Don't think
him
I
in
did.
that. So, synopsis reads as a screenwriter drawn back to his childhood home enters into a fledgling relationship with his downstairs neighbour while discovering a mysterious new way to heal from losing his parents 30 years ago.
There's a bit of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Looks a bit of an age gap between the two. I don't know if that's just... I feel like that's more acceptable in same-sex couples, because I think it's a bit trickier, isn't it?
Can be, yeah.
I think it's... And trying to find the personality and such that you like, and everything that goes with making a great relationship. I'm intrigued.
As am I.
I don't know what to say until I go in. Whose parents have died?
I'm going to assume it's Paul Mescal's character, I would have thought, if he's...
Like he's not grown up with parents, basically.
I could be wrong, but we'll find out soon enough, won't we?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you for picking two male same-sex... Well, you didn't actually pick Paul, but...
Well, the other one was as well, so...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wasn't this like...
It's like, actually, I'll have two girls.
It's listed as fantasy romance.
Oh, I might like it then.
So, there you go.
It's a love story.
Right, so we're back soon with our thoughts on All of Us Strangers.
Drink. It's Japanese. It's meant to be the best in the world, but I couldn't tell you why. So.
No thanks.
Okay, okay, how about I come in anyway? If not for a drink, then for whatever else you might want.
I think that's a good idea.
Do I scare you?
And we're back, having watched All of Us Strangers. Ooh. Bit of a roller coaster in emotions, I guess, for this one. What you say?
Well, yeah. I think, I don't know. I didn't anticipate how it was going to end, and it really got me just out of the blue. I was like, oh my God, I'm like now upset for him for like several reasons.
Yeah, we won't get into that just
yet, I don't know. It really took me through a loop that I didn't expect, which means it's a good film. Because I don't know if you anticipated that that's the way it was going to go.
No, I can't say that I did. But I felt like in some way it was going to be a sad tale. I'm guessing, I don't know if because of, as I say, Paul Mescal, who's the character of Harry in this film. And he's, like I say, like from his performances in After Sun and Normal People. I'm not saying like he's like typecast as a person who's like troubled or, like plays like characters who are and they inevitably end up in like sad situations kind of thing. But I mean,
but that could have been a new leaf for him. It could have been that it didn't have to be that way, but it was, sadly.
He wasn't as prominent as I thought he was going to be, though. To be fair, it was more.
It was like
Adam, who's played by Andrew Scott in this, and it's him who has lost his parents.
Yeah.
In this, which kind of makes more sense of thinking about it because he is like an older.
I think it worked better because of the age. Yeah. I think with how the story's being told, it helps with him being older because I think like he was trying to express like, oh, things have changed now and life, people don't look at us as badly as they used to, and showing like kind of like a time of how it has been to grow up and being gay
in modern times.
Yeah, and how we've changed and progressed.
Yeah,
I think Harry's character is a little bit younger than Adam, so he's not had to experience as much. Not saying he hasn't struggled, but he hasn't experienced the trauma as much as Adam's character being kind of picked on and verbally being mean for being gay and shunned upon. I would say Harry's parents are, would you say like he grew up in the 80s or something like that? Would you?
No, Adams, sorry.
Adams, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because Harry's parents, they're not even in the picture. He talks about that being like, oh, they're not even really like, almost like nothing to do with him, kind of at all, kind of thing.
I think he said he just kind of, he's got 2 other siblings, and they are like they've had the marriage, they've had the kids, and he's like a bit obsolete. He's not really on the foresight.
It's like shun black sheep almost.
But not like they did accept him. They didn't kind of judge him or anything like that. They just.
But yes, Adam's childhood took place in the 80s, and that's the thing with this film. It's going back into Adam's past, sort of like having those conversations with his parents who have passed away. So that's what this film has over other typical dramas, because it has those, confronting the ghosts of his past essentially, and speaking to them about, having that conversation that's probably would have been just as difficult in, obviously, if his parents were alive still, to talk to him about the fact that he's, homosexual, but it probably in slightly even more heartbreaking way, because, like you said, like their sensibilities of what life at the time in the 80s, 90s was. They say like, you can't be too open about that, and
does everybody know? Just
and
certain,
the like AIDS and things like being a big thing.
Kind of being, obviously they're stuck in a bit of a time warp with it.
Yeah.
I really do quite like this part though for Adam, with him getting to see his parents and certain things that they ask about, like death and such. Like, was it quick? Did I die quickly? Where did you go after we were no longer here? Like, who looked after you? And it was quite insightful, because it's like, obviously it makes you wonder what's happened to them. Are they in purgatory? How have they?
Yeah, I think they're just more like they're in his, say, subconscious, really, because I don't know, he feels guilty that he never really addressed that with them.
Yeah.
But because he obviously was going through that at school, but never got around to mention it, and he's kind of lived that burden on his shoulder all his life, really.
I don't know if it's like he physically can talk to spirits and it's like that he can see them, or is it he's mentally ill from it, like the trauma of it all, and the guilt and the regret. It's just all kind of too much for him, so he's kind of playing out scenarios in his head, which we're just seeing. I'm not sure which one.
But that adds to the intrigue as well, and I feel like, in a way, would say that allows multiple viewings to process what's going on as well. So again, that's something else that kind of like picking apart and like, oh, does that make sense with that part of the storyline and kind of things like that. And
I think it's really intriguing. It would be one I'd watch again, but I'd have to be in the right frame of mind to watch this, because I think if it's quite heavy hitting, it's quite hard to watch at the end, and it does kind of get you quite emotional. Well, for me, emotional. And I think I would have preferred it to happen a bit differently, but I feel like obviously not everything can be roses, and this doesn't turn out that way. So you've got Adam, who's lost his 2 parents in a car crash around Christmas time. They were going to a Christmas party. He didn't want to go, and they had a couple of drinks and they drove home, and they slid on black ice, and Dad passed away pretty much straight away. The mum lingered on for a little bit. She lost her sight, apparently. One of her eye popped out or something.
Yeah.
And I think she clinged on for like another 2 days, and then she sadly passed as well. So for Adam, I think it's always awful having like somebody pass or die when it's around a certain season that you're aware of that.
Yeah.
It's always going to come like, oh, around Christmas this happened. And you kind of attach the two together. Okay. Adam's character's he is gay or queer, however you want to say it. He's very much an old school. You can see that he is a little bit slightly ashamed, and I think that's how he's been brought up as well. that he's not very loud and proud
Loud
about it.
Yeah.
Should we say?
Yeah.
Whereas I think Harry's character is, he knows he's gay. He knows that's what he is.
Because as it sounds, it's more, you can be more open about it in modern times.
Yeah.
With that. Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like now it is more acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, there's certain religions that still tell you it's wrong and you shouldn't. But even those, I feel like within that religion, you can still love that person. It doesn't mean like you agree with what they're doing, but you can still love and care for that person. So it is a little bit easier. Whereas beforehand, I think it was really frowned upon. Like it was quite new, so people judged it, which doesn't make it right. But I think when something's different, people do that, don't they?
They do. But I like one of the things that Harry brings up though when he said, jokingly, like, queer is like quite a polite thing to be addressed as opposed to, when you were younger and also that shirt's gay, those shoes are gay, like
and we all did
it. Yeah, back in the day, like, this is gay, this is like
and now the thought of that just like repulses me. It's like awful.
Yeah.
No, I don't know, I feel like queer sounds, personally, I feel like
more offensive.
Yeah, somehow. But obviously I'm not gay, because like gay to me can be either way. It doesn't just have to be like it's, I don't know, I feel like gay sounds politer, but then it depends on how that person feels. Like he thinks queer sounds politer and posher way of saying it, and I think it's like, well, really, as long as you're not offending anybody, I don't think it actually truly matters. This relationship though blossoms quite quickly, and I did say to you, like, oh, here we go, right, literally, like, they'd had one night together, like, getting to know one another, and then they spent the night together. Yeah. I didn't know how you were going to feel about that.
No, I think it was tastefully done. Yeah. Until you kind of pointed out when I maybe was just writing notes, somebody looked away for a second, and that's, oh god, this, you said,
it's very
Harry,
politely worded. I was.
What did you say?
He's got some white stuff on his chest.
Yeah, let's maybe just leave it there. On that, yeah.
Harry licked it off him.
Use your imagination what that white stuff is. It wasn't mayonnaise.
More calories than mayonnaise. Let's just say that.
But in terms of that lead up, because it wasn't like a fast cut like frenzy of like ripping clothes off and like going proper hardcore with it. It's kind of like a slow, intimate, like am I okay with doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, it was a hesitancy with it, wasn't there?
Yeah, and then sort of getting down to it, and then like cut, and it's like the deed's been done. Yeah. So,
it's implied what's happened. Yeah. You don't need to see it all.
Exactly.
And not meaning that in an awful way. Even in like a rom-com film or any kind of film, I don't want to see all of that. I'm aware, like, okay, yeah, they've done it, thanks. I don't need to be watching them actually do it.
Yeah.
Because I put a porno on if I'm going to watch that one. Let's be honest. Like,
sometimes you can go too far with it. Sometimes you can either play it as you always deemed necessary, but sometimes it's best to use your imagination and.
It's like Game of Thrones, like that to me. Like, I didn't need all of that in it. For me, it was like, okay, this is not necessary. Like, I know obviously back then it was a bit crass and
yeah.
But there were certain bits like were really uncomfortable and just didn't need them. Whereas with this, I feel like it.
Yeah, it's just to show that they're falling in love with one another. Move on to the thing and then focus on the drama. You obviously like the downtime when they're talking, have the conversation after the fact. You would, and that's what the film is more focused on. So
it is, and I think it's their relationship as a two, which is
to know about them, and that's more important.
Yeah.
Before we get on to obviously more the deeper stuff, the fact that like even from the opening shot as well, like a cinematography eye there of like just that sort of like the dawn waking up in London with like the cityscape on that very, very bright, colourful background as he's looking out his apartment window and everything like that. And even like with still in the block of flats with that elevator and stuff like that mirrored thing that kind of like makes them both characters when they're standing there, like the reflection, and it's like going further back, like they feel like there's probably some like symbolism there with how they feel like going into a dark void or something.
Yeah, like drifting away
into it because they feel like empty, and the fact that also that everything in that area seems like empty as well. It's kind of like they're just like drifters in the night kind of thing. Like
There's only two people living in there.
The building kind of thing. Out of, in this modern area of London, which is normally like bustling and everything like that, you would still think there'd be encounters like that, but
it makes it sound like they've only just built the flats and not many people have bought them or moved in yet. But it also makes you feel like it's quite isolated.
Yeah.
And you definitely feel like you've got a presence of being alone.
100%, yeah. Which I think is, for both of the characters, they are both feeling alone and isolated in their own way and just need that connection, which they feel like they have. But it doesn't quite work out that way, really, as we kind of learn on the back end. But
initially, you kind of really rooting for Adam and Harry as a couple. You see them progress, you see them grow, you see them. Harry brings out a more freer side of Adam, like going to the nightclubs, obviously taking some drugs, and just feeling a bit more free, a bit more relaxed. Harry really looks after Adam, and Harry, I feel like you can see the love straight away. Like, he loves Adam. Adam seems to need to be like kind of coaxed a little bit, like, come on, it's okay. We're in the modern times now. We can go out together. We can hold hands. We can legally get married and have children if we wanted to. And I think Harry is just Adam's support system. He's just the person to make him better. And the first time they encounter one another, Harry's there with a bottle of Japanese whiskey.
Yeah.
Paul's
I'd let him in.
Yeah, you would.
I don't know if it's good stuff, but
Paul's like, if it's whiskey and it's Japanese, come on in.
Not even something that way, but just as like, come on, let's hang out.
Yeah. And I think that's all Harry wanted, was some time with somebody who would be a friendly face and like give him some company. Yeah. And Adam, he's in a bit of a rut at the moment. I feel like he's meant to be a writer, but all he does is watch TV instead.
Yeah, he's having like writer's block and everything. I think he's writing about his family, but I guess he's not got the inspiration from that. So then, what ends up happening with that is, obviously with these encounters with going back to his past, to his childhood home, he's kind of like getting inspired to write about them.
Yeah.
And
it's a weird one for Adam, I feel, because you feel a lot of love towards his parents, but also a lot of resentment, and it's quite hard hitting because he loves his parents and he was so upset and traumatized when obviously they passed away. And he didn't want them to go. And when he kind of relived that moment again, you could just feel it all coming over him again. Like, he knew that night that he was there was the night of the accident, and he didn't want them to leave or say goodbye to them. But at the same time, there's certain things that his parents did. Like his dad, when he said, I used to hear you crying and sobbing upstairs, but he never came up. And he never hugged his son, and he never asked him if he was all right, and he wasn't really there for him. But yet, he would have rather have had that, even though he knew his dad wasn't fully there for him, than have lost them completely, if that makes sense. And like his mum, all he craved was his mum's approval. He put her on a pedestal.
Yeah, which it oddly seemed like she was more a bit almost semi-repulsed or like dismissive of him being that persuasion, which kind of took me back a little bit, thinking, well, it's normally, maybe it's just a stereotypical thing of like, the father would be more like, like, I can't believe this kind of thing, whereas the mum would be more supportive. But it seemed like the dad was more like, I kind of knew, because he couldn't throw a ball or anything.
Yeah, which is, I just say to you, Paul, do you need to tell me something? Because you definitely can't throw a ball. I mean, like,
I'm not really big on football or sports or anything like that. So, but I don't think that's
not
very critical on that as like
But back then it would have been
just because you don't like sports, you must mean you're gay, kind of.
Yeah, literally, it would have been back then in the 80s. It would have been like, definitely, because every man loved football, could throw a ball, and was quite sport orientated.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously now we've stepped away from that, which is great. Like, you don't have to be liking everything just because this is what a male should like.
Yeah.
And I think for Adam, it was his mum who was always there for him. And I think they did have a close bond when he was little. I feel like she was more supportive, but I don't know if she's quite religious. if it's a religious thing where she's finding it hard to, and she cares as well what the neighbours think.
Yeah.
But there's certain things she does say
Mm-hmm.
that are like...
One of the things she says, like, when he says, oh, we can marry and have kids, and she's like, oh, isn't that like having your cake and eating it too?
Yeah.
Like,
and do you want that? And it's like, but you just wanted him to have a girlfriend, and you wanted him to have a family, but now
because
it's with a man, it's
like,
shunned upon.
Yeah.
Also, like you said about the disease, so she was like, oh, well, isn't there a disease you get? Because round then you would have had, like, God bless his soul, like George Michael, who did get AIDS, and, you know, there was assumptions of, like, men who are gay will get it, but we do know anyone can get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just
exclusive to,
and it can be hereditary as well.
Yeah.
It's, but obviously science and everything, we've grown a lot.
Stuff that you hear in the news or anything like that, propaganda of that, like
yeah. And I think I don't know, around then it was cliched that it was just
only homosexuals contracted it.
Yeah.
It's like get away kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it was just really badly publicised, and obviously somebody really famous who had it, who was homosexual, I don't know, I think the media just went with it.
Mm-hmm.
So she does do some quite harsh... There's another thing she says, well, you don't look gay. Like, how hurtful is that? Like, I am gay. Just because I'm not going around being very, very flamboyant and over the top.
Wearing a tight shirt and pink,
Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes I...
handlebar moustache and...
I can know who's gay or who's not gay. Normally I'm quite good at that. But it's mainly with... But it would be more your stereotype. Whereas if you're trying to hide it and you're not wanting people to know, then you're probably not going to come across as gay, which is the same thing. And obviously that must have been really hurtful to say to your son, even though obviously this is probably something he's playing out in his head. Like, this is how she would have reacted.
Yeah, there's no absolutely 100% guarantee like that she would say all this, but for him it's maybe he's thinking that the worst, maybe, essentially. But
there's another part with his dad where apparently Adam used to cross his legs.
Yes. So, don't cross your legs. But that's something I sometimes do as well. But
it depends on how you cross your legs. So there's definitely a man cross versus a girl cross leg. So if you do a man cross where it's like one of your legs is down and your leg's half over, which I think
you mean like 90-degree angle, like
yes,
like
that's a man cross. If your knee can go on top of your other knee,
like going like that,
that's
a feminine,
more of a and I think logically normally a male can because they're not as flexible logically, they're just not. But he used to cross his legs however he crossed his legs, and his dad would be like, stop it, you look like a girl. And it's certain things like when you're back in that
time period,
they don't realise how hurtful these things can be. And I think for me, every time it said something, I've literally written everything down that he said, because I was like, you shouldn't say that. Like, and it just felt like, even our time now, like knowing, even if we grew up where, as teens, everything was gay, even now we know, like, that doesn't sit right and it's not correct to say.
No.
And I think this was quite a good way to educate the older generation a little bit. There was another part where, obviously, Adam tells his mum that he moved in with her mum, so his granny. And she's like, oh, well, you moved to Dublin, did you fit in at school? And he said, well, he made sure he did.
Yeah.
So he's always put on an act, and that kind of makes sense as he's grown up. You kind of see that.
That he's having to hide away and not comfortable in his own skin with that. I'm sure a lot of people, it's still like quite difficult to tell your parents about that or come out in general about that. It's not as...
I think it's scary because...
Easy, I can never really relate to something like that. But
I think it depends on, how you brought up. I think if it's a religious background, I definitely think it's a lot harder. There's a lot of religions out there that shun on that. And I think if you're aware already that, like, I grew up in a Christian school. Like, I grew up knowing that obviously the Bible does say, like, that is a sin, basically. So, and there is lots of other, like, even Muslims, religions, and everything like that do say that is like a no-go. And then growing up knowing that some God that's created us doesn't want you to do something like that must mean, like, if you're definitely growing up in a religious culture, from the get-go, you know that's deemed as wrong or bad. To then have to say that you are that must be really difficult.
Didn't your school also say like, oh, wearing red was like, oh,
No, that was me.
Devilish or something like?
I think I remember growing up when I was really little in my school. This was a different school, but they were both Christian schools. The first school I grew up, my like primary school, I asked what the devil looked like because they were telling me there was heaven and hell.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like not go to hell, so I was like, well, what's the devil like? Like, for some reason I wanted to know what did I need to do
to not go
to hell, basically. And they told me that, I don't know how it came about, but basically the image of the devil basically is like red, it's dark, and I remember being absolutely bloody petrified, to the point of my mum bought me this lovely satiny velvet red dress and I wouldn't wear it because it was the devil's colours. So it was more me, but I think because they told me what colours he was and what it was like, and like heaven was white and yellow and godly and all spiritual, and then the devil was dark and red, and then I just associated the two colours with being tiny.
Right. Sorry to go off topic again.
No, but it is impactful, because if you've grown up like that, in a culture like that, then to be told that it's wrong, like me, like not wearing red.
But also, you didn't. I'm sure you said this though. The school said, "Oh, Harry Potter was like, you couldn't watch the films or read the books because it was a witchcraft and stuff." Yeah. But then,
and there were certain artists you couldn't listen back to, like, I don't know if it was like Metallica or something, or like like heavy metal, because it was
the devil's music kind of thing.
Yeah, if you listen to it backwards,
that kind of old cliche or something.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sorry, I'm not taking the mick out of their religion and their whatever, but it's just, I think it's just really close-minded sometimes. And I think that's why I've had to kind of step away a little bit and think, well, however we are formed or created, or why we're on this planet, there's always a reason. And if that means a man loves another man and that person can help and make that person better and grow, I don't see what's wrong with it.
No, neither do I. No, you love who you love.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. To me, as long as you're a good person and you're loving that person for the right reasons, I can give a crap. Like, if we have a baby and they turn out homosexual, I am not going to be absolutely, as long as the person they're bringing in is a lovely person, which he or she will be, depending on what baby they have. Well, they might not even have a gender. You never know at this point. But I think it's, as long as it's the right reasons and that person's doing good for that person, then, like,
it's all that matters. Yeah.
In the end, Adam's parents do say, "Oh, Harry's lovely. We've seen him from afar. He does love you, and you've got a really good relationship." And I think the parents slowly
coming
around, seeing that the son is happy, and he's getting this better relationship with being open and honest about being gay.
Yeah, and that's what leads to him sort of like sort of letting go, even though he doesn't really want to let go of them. But because that did get me actually, it was this just having that conversation at the diner and everything, and he's really getting choked up, and I said, "Oh, obviously the music's playing and everything like that," but it's a bit like,
it still makes me sad. I think I love my parents a lot, and the thought of when it comes to a day when they're no longer here, I've already told you it's going to be a really hard hitting time for me. I think I will struggle a lot, and your parents are impactful. They're the ones who created you.
Yeah, you look up to them when you're young, because they're the ones who are responsible for you as you're growing up, and so you look up to them, literally.
Yeah. And I think for Adam's character, he already lost them when he was 12, and then this is just like re-losing him all over again. And we haven't even touched upon like him reverting to a child. Like, there's certain things where he is just so childlike. Like when he's saying to his dad, like, "You never used to hug me when I cried," and then he just burst into tears. And the shot goes from Adam being his adult self hugging his dad, but lower in a form of looking up, like he said, to then bringing in this little boy again.
You see it in the mirror and everything. Again, that's sort of the reflections of the past, really.
Yeah.
Which I say, like, when he takes Harry over to the house you go like, oh, come and see my parents, and then there's like nobody there, and it's obviously it's like an abandoned house or whatever, and that he's somehow been getting in, obviously like reliving moments, so the decor's the same as he was.
It seems like nobody's bought the house. Like it's just stayed in this time capsule of them living there. Like no one's sold it on or anything like that. Maybe it's his grandma's and she didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Or maybe Adam's actually got a right to live there.
But then again, if that was the case, why didn't he open the door? He was like knocking, and so somehow, it's
because I didn't know if it was going to go several ways with this.
Yeah.
So one being that somebody was still living there, but was a very lovely person and was letting him come in, and he was just kind of talking to them like he was his parents.
Yeah.
I did wonder if that
was going to be the case. Yeah, I did think that too, actually. It's like, how was he getting into the house?
Yeah. And then other one would be that it's abandoned, like we assume it is.
The door was open and he could just walk in.
And that's when it made me think, oh, well, maybe his parents do reside there and they are in like purgatory and they've got some unfinished business to move on to the other side. Right. So they're like lingering around in their old home. And then the next one would be when obviously Adam brings Harry over. Is it all quite a mental illness? Is it all in Adam's brain? And then I didn't know if Harry would leave him. Like, obviously not knowing what we knew at that point. Like, Adam seeing him, like, trying... Yeah, like... Harry, seeing him trying to get in.
Yeah, that's a bit crazy, but...
Yeah, like, maybe he needed some actual help.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, he's gonna lose Harry here now.
Something that's really important in his life now, and it's like, because he's clinging to the past.
And he's not going to live in his present. So when he's in the diner, he's reliving losing his parents again. But also, could it be that then they have done their unfinished business? I don't know.
Yeah, I think in his eyes that yes, it probably is the case. Again, they're coming to terms with what's happened and opening up to them, and then that's technically it's unfinished business for both of them, I guess, and so that they can now move on.
The way that they do it, though, oh god, it's like the dad, like when they ask about death, and he's like, it's peaceful, but we knew for the mum it wasn't as peaceful, and it wasn't as quick as the dad's. Like the dad went still and just went, and that were it. It was pretty much dead,
instantaneous,
Whereas the mum's was a little bit, that kind of got me. I can't see Adam, he's still there. It did really upset me for him. And even like when it reverted to the night of him knowing that his parents were going to die and pass away, he was reverting to a little boy again in the bed with them, didn't want to leave them.
Sleep and, And then from that, there's also these kind of like blurred visions, like with Harry being there, like, what are you doing here in my parents' bed type of thing. And then obviously like this, like the sirens stuff is like, oh, something's happened kind of thing. But then like blurring lines of reality and the past. And then, the clincher at the end with Watts, which I was obviously didn't see coming, and then it's like that first encounter with Harry's all the more impactful because of that, because it seems like none of this interaction from that point with Harry even happened.
Yeah,
because he learns after going, like you say, he says goodbye to his parents. Then he goes to see Harry in the flat and realises that he's also killed himself, drunk himself to death, and then sees Harry as a ghost. And then he's
I don't know if Harry's been there spiritually all this time then, pretty much. But I don't know how to interpretate it in my mind. Like, is it that Adam can just speak to the dead and speak to spirits? Or is it that Adam was just making up this relationship with Harry in his head?
I think it's a bit of both, because of obviously not everyone Adam can see his spirits, obviously, but he can obviously see his parents, and from learning this, that we know that these encounters. Actually, no, think about it, because you never don't necessarily see him
talking to anyone else.
Anyone else at that point. Thinking about leaving on, like when they're out and about in the nightclubs and stuff, could just be, like strangers in the night, and just assuming that they're just passing through, not
Makes you wonder, doesn't it, actually,
Yeah.
if he's made the whole thing up.
But I think he perhaps did. But that's what I said about the repeat actions of it, because you can think that with, like, say, like, what, Fight Club or something like that, where it's like, you know, like a split personality kind of thing, and it's like, oh, how does that play into what that person thinks they're seeing?
When
and then, like, how does that interaction work with that? Does that, like, oh, that seems odd, like, why is that not?
Maybe the first time he meets Harry as well, it's like, is there a different light? You know, is there a clue for you to kind of twig on?
And then after the fact, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something we completely missed to kind of tell us that Harry had passed away and we just didn't realise? It really got me, because it's like his parents had just passed away again. He just relived all of that to realise the person that he could have, well, in his head he loved, and in our heads he'd had a relationship with.
Yeah.
But he missed his opportunity by just not letting him in on that night.
Yeah. And that's...
More regrets.
Yeah.
Instantly. And it's just a what if moment of, well, what if I hadn't done that night? He would still be here. We would be together. And that's kind of how I assumed it was going to end. Like, Adam had lost his parents again. Harry was going to be his rock and be there for him. And they'd work it out together. Never did I think Harry would be so lonely that he got himself into a drunken state and
ended it all.
Yeah, because he seemed like such a cheerful character when he was with Adam.
But again, that's what you put on a front, don't you? A facade of it all, and then
you don't really learn much about Harry apart from, like, he is a bit shunned from the family. You don't really know a lot, and
that's what I said about the fact that he's like, where my parents were when this happened. Like, why did nobody
care? That got me.
Yeah. Because how would they, if they say, like, they're just so focused on the rest of the family, the rest of his family, then, like, this, how many days, you know, has he been left in? Probably not that long, but still, you know, the fact,
but there was like a smell, wasn't there? They did say, like, when Adam walked in, you kind of knew, like, the way that he was covering his nose and everything. There was a smell
stench, and there was it's a mention about in the conversation about, like, white noise. He needs to sleep because it's always too quiet in this place.
Yeah.
Everything. So the TV's on with the white noise, which I didn't even think of modern TVs had that facility to do that. They didn't no such thing, but unless there was like
an app for it.
An app, white noise app, to have it on it's like an old school TV. But
it broke my heart, and then the way that it ended with them kind of still Adam hugging the spirit of Harry.
Yeah.
And then ending with the power of love. Now, it starts with the power of love and it ends with the power of love.
Yeah.
Initially, when the power of love come on, and it's I protect you from the hooded claws.
Keep the vampires at bay. Yeah.
I used to hate this song when I was little. It used to really scare me because it's like it's a whispery voice and I didn't like it. And then I didn't understand why it used to be played constantly around Christmas. So I associate it as a Christmas song. Because I'm guessing it was number one at some point.
Yeah.
But oh my God, at the end, how impactful was it? I actually had a different appreciation for the song. I think it's the beginning that I just don't like. The actual power of love.
When it kicks in,
is good.
Yeah.
And I kind of, the way that the panning out, obviously.
Into the darkness, and then it
there's
goes.
Like a glow.
Yeah. And it becomes like stars in the night sky.
So. I take that as Adam's gone to rest as well.
Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it. That he's now gone to go see his mum and dad and Harry in heaven. That, or wherever, whatever, when we pass away happens.
Yeah.
Because God knows, I don't know. Literally only God wills, doesn't he? Well, never mind. Let's not get into that.
Whoever knows.
Whoever knows.
What happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a very strong ending with that, and a powerful song, and I'd also like to say, like, a bit like in After Sun, with the sort of like the needle drops, as it were, like with the records that they play. There's quite a few good ones that do actually link into the film as well, with like the subject matter as well. There's, like I said, there's the one from Fallout, which is I don't want to set the world on fire, which I kind of like funny. But
yeah, and I said, is it from The Shining? And you looked at me like, Sophie.
I said, no, that's the Midnight, the Stars, and you in that one. But I don't think I've heard it before, but it's definitely gone on the playlist now. The one that's playing at the sort of like that montage they have where like Adam and Harry are like sort of like hanging out like with each other like in day-to-day life, and it's them but when sort of in the club, and there's that Blur song that comes on.
Oh,
Death, I think it's called Death at a Party or something. It's like, oh my god, yeah, like it's really good. Really good song. I'm really big fan of Blur, but I haven't really listened to a lot of the back catalogue of stuff. But that seemed like a really good, important song as well because again, sort of like the subject at hand with it in a way. So
there was also one when they were doing the Christmas tree, and I forgot what it was now.
Oh yeah,
but the mum started singing it as well. And I think that were more like quite impactful because she was saying it's looking at him, Adam singing to him, and it was something to do. Was it I've Got You Bet? I don't know.
No, it wasn't. I can't remember.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know, but it seemed like it kind of seemed important because the way she was sort of singing it in a way like as if maybe it was something that was playing when around the time that just before the incident happened or something. Maybe perhaps I don't know.
Or maybe before. Maybe when Adam was born or something like that, it could have been. Because I think it was weird because it was like they were doing the Christmas tree, but there was no Christmas music. It was like this, like they'd got the radio on or something.
Yeah. You'd be wanting.
I'd want Christmas music. But also, I think as well, they did really well at like, oh, now that's what I call music. Like, what was it?
Oh,
number 10 or something.
10 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't even know it was going on that long.
Yeah. No, it could probably be long as like Top of the Pops and stuff, the chart stuff would have been.
That's true. We're in like
I don't even know if they still do those because I remember getting the CDs when
a
lot younger. When obviously that was the way to listen to music, not like Spotify now.
So, are we going to scores? Because I know you have to go first. Am I right? I'm right, aren't I? I am right.
You are right, yeah.
No pressure.
Oh. I'm going to put it at 8.5. Very impactful. Telling of a story of homosexuality. Done with modern like cinematography and sensibilities of how to approach it. I think everything was done in a way that was really intriguing. And everything felt important.
Yeah.
But I say like quite heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
And I say it's a bit like with what After Sun was again, like in a way that's kind of like
it leaves you heavy,
heavy hearted, really. So it's not like let's crack this film out and
let's put it on again.
Yeah. Definitely important piece in the LGBTQ cinema, I would say, and I'd say a very very good recommendation to check out, but just be cautious with watching it with your frame of mind, I guess. Is what I'll say. But and I say just like the what we said about the fantasy element of it, like with him talking to his parents as ghosts, essentially. Really, I felt it was impactful and worked to different spin on things rather than just the bog standard drama that you might have. So, yeah, what would you go for score wise?
It's tricky because I always go with, what did I really enjoy? And I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the film, I did. But because it is such a hard subject matter, it did leave me feeling quite sad. But at the same time, there was some really good morals and meanings behind it. So, like, take chances, don't have any regrets. Kind of be yourself, basically. It's, you only have one life. I think it made you realise how important your life is.
Would you say it was in a way like melancholy, in a sense? Yeah, because you don't feel. Is it like sad, happy kind of thing? But I don't know if it is really, truly is that.
I think for me, since obviously with us recently, we've lost our little Jack Russell, and I think passing has been one of those more spiritual things I've kind of seen. Like sometimes it is good to pass, and you do have your. Like, we have seasons in life, like where you do have your summer, you have your winter.
Yeah.
And, I'd class your winter as when you kind of, you're worse or you're poorly, and then you will pass like a leaf will drop off a tree kind of logic. And I think for me, this was like a insightful way of looking at life a little bit differently. I would definitely watch it again. I would, because I think it's something that I would like to understand and nitpick a bit more. And I think it's a little bit like Shutter Island, where I don't believe he was a patient, and like I want to understand how Adam actually is. Is he
how he approached it, maybe, or like
yeah?
What were the telltale signs of like where the lines blurred essentially?
Yeah, and kind of understand that more.
Uh-huh.
So it's weird because it's a high score, but compared to my normal high scores, it's a bit strange
again,
for me.
Yeah, it's I would say like something that's for me like with Grave of the Fireflies, for example, where it's like, oh yeah, the subject matter is pretty heavy, but there's appreciation for what's showing in a storytelling perspective.
I think I'm going to give it a 9, 0.5 higher than you, but I think that's more just for how it took me on an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah,
and the way that it ended, which I didn't expect, but also the impactfulness of the Power of Love song and the way that.
And you'll now see that in a different light.
Yeah. Hopefully I won't think of it as a Christmas shitty song all the time. I'll actually appreciate it.
Yeah, I get it. I think that's good all round, really. I think for a score of that caliber, I think it's just say like an important watch, and I don't think there's anything to be. Despite the score of what I gave it, I wouldn't say there was inherently negative. It's more just how
it leaves you to feel.
Sad it feels.
Yeah,
for you. Yeah. That's the only thing I'd say. Because I was like thinking, well, it should be. I don't know if it's definitely it's not quite a 9, but not quite an 8. So
yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but I would definitely check out again just to say like to, but not
anytime soon.
Yeah, not quite like next
because it is quite. It really is hard hitting. It really is, and it got me. I'm not gonna lie, and I know I'm a softie.
On retrospect, like the other patron pick was probably not as strong. I don't know, like what in terms of like a storytelling thing. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I feel like this may have had the edge over, like with fantasy.
Even though when I said fantasy, I went, where's the fantasy in this? And you were like, so it doesn't have to mean a wizard or a fairy. No, it's fantasy because he's making something up in his head, I guess.
Yeah. So thank you very much for listening to this episode, and hopefully you'd like to check out some of our other episodes. And you can do that by going over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And as always, we'd love you to give us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, and wherever else they do the scoring system. Very much appreciated.
And if you haven't already, why not? Follow us on every platform under the handle SP_filmviewers. So we're on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, Instagram. Done.
Yeah, go check us out on there. Give us a like. Give us a follow.
Do that.
Do that. And of course, we'd also like to thank the Patreons.
Yes, I will. I will thank them this time.
Continuing support. And if you'd like to have your name read out, as we're going to do in a moment, and have the opportunity to vote for a movie we watch once a month, then you can do so by going to patreon.com/SPFilmViewers.
So firstly, we have my mum. Then we've got our wonderful friends. So we've got Alex and Shani, both on Instagram, under the handles Desperately Seeking Username and SDOG.
We've also got Jonesy and Emma, who are both on Instagram, under the handle @WeightLossJonesy and M_Hayton. And we've also got our friend Gren, who is also on Instagram under the handle @CGren_draw.
And lastly but not least, the lovely fellow podcasters. We've got Mark from 100 Things We Learned from Film. We've got Ben from Push Pull Health, film vloggers previously. And then we've got the lovely Nico from the Good, the Bad and the Weird podcast.
Yeah, so thanks guys and gals. Very much appreciated. And yeah, that's a wrap.
Enjoyed it, thank you.
Next time, of course, will be a movie you haven't seen and been wanted to do for quite some time. So.
When you say that, I always twinge
it's not quite.
I'm going to
don't worry, it's not quite like Alien. It's different genre of that, so not sci-fi. Don't you worry.
As long as it's not in space, we'll be alright.
Yeah. No, it's grounded in the real world, on Earth.
Okay with that.
Yeah. So, thank you very much for listening to this episode once again, and we will speak to you next time.
Speak to you next time.
Bye now.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.